My permit binder says one thing: never beach at the Weeping Willow. At 2:07 a.m., that rule mattered more than the river itself, because the phone map in my pocket showed our dot sliding upstream while the current still pushed south. The air near that bend carried a sweet, cheap conditioner smell that never belonged out here, and the clients behind me started whispering like the tree could hear them. I kept one hand on the oarlock, the other on the dry box latch, tapping the carabiner on my life jacket twice the way I do when I want my pulse to stop lying to me, because one more bad review would end my season, and the mechanic wanted cash at sunrise. The only reason I stayed on the water that night was the little trip tag stuck to my dry box lid, the one the office used to match tips to guides. It read 7B, and I could almost feel that letter and number judging me. The river never runs backward. The map never lies unless someone makes it. The first page in the shift binder was swollen from spray and stained with a ring of old coffee, but the warning still looked like a threat more than a policy. A strip of black tape across the top read seasonal update in shaky handwriting, and the line under it had been underlined so hard the pen bit through. If you stop at the Weeping Willow, you will be pulled. I used to laugh at that sentence with the new hires, because the river pulls everybody, and that was the whole job. Then I learned to quit laughing. A guide learns the sounds of an empty stretch the way a night guard learns a building. The hiss of the current on a gravel bar, the soft tick of a paddle blade drying, the way a voice carries when nobody else is out. That night the clients got quiet, and I let the quiet happen, because quiet usually means comfort, and comfort means tips. The group in my raft were all adults, all tired, all the kind of people who booked a late run because daylight never left space in their lives. One of them had a knee brace and an embarrassed smile that kept flickering on and off. Another held a phone like it was a flashlight and a shield at the same time. They kept asking for the willow like they had already promised themselves a picture there. I said no twice, cleanly, like the binder trained me. Then I lied, the small kind of lie that turns into a big kind later. I told them the willow looked better in the dark from the water anyway, so stopping would ruin it. A short laugh bounced off the bank, and one of them said, "Come on." The laugh rolled back to us late, like something held it. The safety kayaker on my tail was a guide too, not a client, and her headlamp blinked once as she drifted closer. She kept her light low to save night vision, and she had the calm voice of someone who had spent too many seasons untangling other people's mistakes. I called her Mara because Mara was the only name that fit her, sharp and simple. "Skip it," she said, "no extra words. Keep it boring." That was Mara's catchphrase when the river started getting loud, and I hated how much comfort it gave me. The clients heard her and got offended the way paying people get offended when someone treats them like a risk. The knee brace guy tried to joke it off. "Scenic stop," he said. "Quick one." My hand drifted to the binder again, like touching the paper could make it forgive me. The next rule sat beneath the first, printed on a laminated card clipped to the inside cover with a rusty paper clip. The card had a corner peeled back, and somebody had written in ballpoint under the printed line like a secret correction. "If you smell shampoo on the water, you do not approach the bank." I smelled it again, stronger, and the river around the bend looked too smooth, like glass laid over moving muscle. Mara let her kayak slide up alongside my stern, close enough that I could hear the tiny squeak of her spray skirt. "Bad bend," she said. "Hard no." The client stared at her like she had insulted them personally, and I felt that familiar squeeze behind the ribs that comes from wanting to keep the job and keep the people safe and keep everybody happy, all at the same time. The phone in my pocket buzzed once, a soft reminder from the bank app that an automatic payment would hit before noon, and the thought landed like a hook. I needed the tips. I needed the review. I needed one more clean run. The willow waited around the bend like a dare. I told myself I would not stop at the willow. The river disagreed. A gravel bar that should have drifted past my left shoulder slid the wrong way, upstream, and the current under the raft didn't change pitch. The clients gasped because their eyes saw the world move backward, and Mara's paddle froze mid-stroke because she saw it too. "Don't," she said, and the word hit my spine like a shove. My phone map chimed again, and when I pulled it out, the little arrow on the screen pointed up the river like a compass with a broken promise. The dot showed us moving north, against everything my legs and arms felt. A guide knows the difference between a weird eddy and a lie. I aimed for the center channel and rowed harder, because muscle solves most problems on water. The raft kept sliding, slow at first, then faster, and the smell on the air turned from sweet to sour, like wet hair left in a locker too long. The clients started talking over each other, their fear turning into noise, and I wanted to tell them to stop, because noise attracts attention, but that word would have turned into a lecture, and lectures make people rebel. I gave them something smaller. "Low voices," I said. "Listen." The river listened back. Every small sound I expected went away. No insects, no distant highway, no wind in branches. Even our own dripping quieted, like the water decided to hold its breath. The silence forced a choice. Either beach and break the rule in the binder, or keep drifting backward into whatever waited around that bend. Mara lifted her paddle and tapped my raft once, a guide-to-guide signal for decision point, and I saw the tightness in her jaw that meant she was counting exits too. "Backwater pull," she said, and then winced. "Eddy line, sorry, long shift brain." The human part of me loved that she could make a mistake even now. The river part of me hated that mistakes were contagious. The bank opened up on the right, a patch of sand beneath the willow, clean and pale, like somebody raked it for a photo shoot. The tree leaned over the water, long curtains hanging down, and the leaves moved without wind. The branches didn't sway. They just adjusted, the way a person adjusts a blanket. I hit the oars to slow the backward slide, and the raft kissed the sand anyway, gentle, like it had been waiting for this contact all night. The first resource I lost was communication. My guide radio sat clipped to my vest, set to the outfitter channel, and the little screen still showed signal bars. I pressed the talk button, and my own breath came back at me through the speaker, delayed and flattened like a recording. Mara tried hers. A low crackle answered, then a click, then nothing. No dispatch, no other guides, no comfort. The client stared at the willow like the tree might offer an apology. One of them stepped forward, knee brace guy, and he tried to plant a foot on the sand. Mara caught his life jacket shoulder strap and held him on the raft with a grip that left no room for argument. "No stepping out," she said, voice calm enough to sound rude. The binder said another line, tucked lower on the card, and the print was smeared like the ink had been rubbed with a wet thumb. I leaned close, and the letters swam. "If you touch the bank, you do not touch the roots." Roots. The word should have meant wood, should have meant dirt, should have meant every normal thing. The curtains under the willow dipped into the river, And when I looked closer, the strands weren't leaves. They were hair, not floating, not tangled drift. Hair that had hardened into rope-thick cords, dark and glossy, and they didn't move like plants. They moved like something flexing. Mara saw my face and followed my gaze, and her whole posture changed, shoulders up, chin tucked, the way she got when she was about to do something brave without wanting to be brave. "Keep it boring," she whispered, but her catchphrase sounded like a prayer now. The clients couldn't stop staring. Somebody lifted a phone to film. The phone screen went black the moment it pointed at the willow, then came back with a frozen image of the sand. Empty. No raft. No people. Like we had already left. That was my first hard proof that the river wasn't just acting strange. The device didn't fail. It lied. I should have pushed off immediately. I should have taken the loss, accepted the bad review, driven my van to the mechanic and begged. Instead, I did the thing that gets guides killed. I tried to manage the moment. 2 minutes, I said, because 2 minutes sounds reasonable. Quick photo from the raft, no stepping out. The group relaxed like the rule I made was a gift. Mara's stare drilled into me. "That stop counts," she said. "I know," I said, and the shame tasted like river grit. "Just 2 minutes." Hair brushed the underside of the raft. The raft shivered, not from current, from contact, like a hand had slid under a door. Mara's paddle snapped down, blade slicing the water beside the raft to push us off the sand. I copied her, and the oars bit, and for half a second the raft moved the right direction. Relief flashed through my chest, sharp and hot. Then the hair caught. A thick cord rose out of the water at the bow, not dripping the way wet things drip, but slick, as if water couldn't cling to it. It looped around my bowline with a gentle certainty, and the line tightened without anybody pulling it. The client screamed, a short burst, then swallowed it when the silence ate the sound. I grabbed my knife, the one I used for tangled rope, and my hand hesitated because the binder hadn't mentioned cutting. Cutting feels like panic, and panic feels like failure. Mara didn't hesitate. She leaned, reached, and slapped my wrist down. "Hands stay dry," she hissed. Her words hit an old habit in me, the way a mentor's rule sticks longer than any printed policy. I repeated it under my breath and pulled my hands back, because the hair didn't look like something that needed skin to work. "Hands stay dry," I told myself, and forced my fingers to unclench. The hair tightened again, and the raft slid upstream off the sand like an obedient dog. A guide has two bad options in that moment: fight and exhaust everybody, or float and pretend floating means control. I chose float because I wanted to look competent. I wanted Mara to stop staring like that. I wanted the clients to stop filming and start trusting me again. The willow's branches followed us, bending low, and the hair cord didn't snap or fray. It stayed perfect, pulling, pulling, pulling. Mara paddled hard beside us, kayak cutting a thin line through the smooth water, and her headlamp flickered like it was trying to refuse this scene. I watched her hands, watched the way she kept her knuckles off the water, and I felt the guilt build, not from fear, but from knowing I had dragged her into this. The river turned left, then right, then left again, and the bank should have changed, but my phone map kept showing the same bend. The dot moved, the arrow changed, and the background never updated. That gave me my first hypothesis, the one my brain wanted most. Human explanation. Someone set a trick, a test, a hidden winch under the waterline, a crew prank to scare the new guide straight. Mara had told stories about the older days, when outfitters ran scare tactics to keep people from illegal campsites. A fake bear roar, a planted mannequin, cheap cruelty in the name of safety. Maybe this is training, I said, because saying it out loud made it real. Mara's paddle paused. Bad kind, she said. No budget for this. A client behind me muttered, This feels staged. The words helped me because they gave me permission to be rational. I ran a test. I took the throwbag rope from my dry box, clipped the end to my carabiner, and tossed the bag into the water beside the raft, aiming for open current, away from the hair cord. The bag splashed, sank, then popped back up like it hit something solid under the surface. No rock in that channel. I knew the depth. I had run it in daylight. I pulled the rope back. The rope came, heavy, then lighter, then heavy again, like it was sliding over something. The rope surfaced with hair wrapped around it, braided tight in a neat 3-strand pattern, like a person tying a gift. Mara saw it and made a sound she tried to choke down. The clients leaned back as a group, bodies pressing together, and their fear finally outweighed their politeness. Go, someone said. Just go. That was the moment my job and my duty stopped being the same thing. A guide is trained to keep clients calm, keep them seated, keep hands inside the raft. A guide is also trained to obey the river, and the river was telling me my plan didn't matter. I should have cut the bowline right then. The binder card had another line, lower down, and the smear made it worse. I had to tilt it toward my headlamp to read it, and the damp laminate stuck to my thumb. If the current reverses, drop anchor. The office kept a small river anchor in the dry box, a mushroom weight with a short chain, for emergency holds near rapids. Dropping anchor is a sane thing when a raft loses control. Dropping anchor is also the easiest way to offer something to whatever waits below. The line on the card looked official, printed in the same font as the other rules, so my brain trusted it even while my stomach screamed. Mara's eyes found the line too. No, she said, single syllable, sharp enough to cut. The clients begged for something, any action, a ritual, a fix. My hand went to the anchor anyway, because obedience feels like safety. The anchor hit the water with a soft plunk, and the rope jerked hard enough to burn my palm through the glove. Hair rose in 3 places around the anchor rope, cords thick as forearms, and they wrapped the rope without splashing. No spray, no chaos, just a clean, practiced loop. The raft surged upstream like it had been kicked. Mara's kayak got yanked sideways, the stern fishtailing, and she nearly flipped. She slapped the water with her paddle to stabilize, and her blade touched hair. She hissed through her teeth and pulled the blade up fast. Something clung to it, a wet strand that didn't drip, that crawled along the carbon shaft like a living thing trying to find her fingers. Mara made the most human sound in the world, a small laugh of disbelief. Then she did the bravest thing a person can do in fear. She held still. She used the flat of her paddle blade to scrape the strand off against her kayak deck without letting it touch skin. Then she sat up straight again, forcing her breath into a normal rhythm. Cut the anchor, she said, voice steady on purpose. Now. That was my first pro-social rule break, and it didn't feel heroic. It felt like failure triage. The binder never said cut. The binder never rewarded disobedience. The binder told lies. I took the knife and sawed at the anchor rope where it ran over the raft frame, keeping my hands above the waterline, keeping my wrists away from the hair. The rope fibers snapped one by one, whining like a trapped animal. And the moment it broke, the raft lurched so hard, a client fell forward onto the cooler. Mara caught the client's shoulder and shoved them back upright with one hand, while she braced her kayak with the other. No panic, no lecture, just action. The anchor rope vanished into the dark water like it had been swallowed. We didn't stop moving upstream. The loss I paid for that competence win was evidence. My knife slipped from wet glove and clattered onto the raft floor. I grabbed for it and missed. It slid under the cooler, out of reach, and the hair cord at the bow tightened again, dragging us faster. A small part of me wanted to laugh, because the river had just punished me for doing the right thing. Mara's radio crackled once more, and a voice came through, flat and wrong, like a recorded dispatch played at the wrong speed. Return to current, do not beach, await tow. Mara stared at her radio like it had grown teeth. That voice isn't live, she said. The clients heard the radio and grabbed onto the word tow like it was a rescue rope. I felt the temptation too. Let someone else fix it. Let the system handle it. Follow the rule and survive. The third line on the binder card, the one scribbled in ballpoint, finally made sense to me in that moment, because I had ignored it earlier as a joke. If dispatch offers a tow, you refuse, Mara said. No tow, and her tone didn't invite debate. I believed her. I also wanted my job, and my job had always been tied to compliance. Follow policies, keep permits, keep reviews, keep the river running. That tension built until it forced a decision. I chose to try to call the office anyway, because part of me still clung to the human explanation. Maybe the office had a winch. Maybe this was a hazard they hid to keep tourists away. Maybe somebody could flip a switch and release us. I pressed the talk button and spoke into dead air. The radio clicked, then played my own voice back, delayed and pitched lower, like the river was practicing my words. Mara didn't look away from the bowline. Stop feeding it, she said. The hair cord began to vibrate, not from water movement, from something traveling along it. A tremor ran from the willow behind us down the line to the raft frame, like a phone buzzing on a desk. The vibration turned into a sound, not a growl, not a whisper, a dry, papery rasp, steady and patient, like someone turning a page in a quiet room. My dry box sat closed at my feet, latched tight. No wind, no fabric, no paper outside that box. The page turn sound came from inside it. I didn't register the horror of that right away. A brain grabs for what it recognizes, and what I recognized was the binder, the rules, the office tape label, the system. The sound forced an action. I snapped the latch open with shaking fingers, keeping my hands above the rim, and the smell that rolled out wasn't river or coffee. It was bleach, sharp and clean, like somebody had tried to sanitize a crime. The binder lay inside, and the top page wasn't the same page I had read a dozen times. A new sheet sat on top, damp around the edges, typed in clean black letters, and the corner had a torn-off tab, like somebody had ripped the label away in a hurry. The line on the sheet sat alone, short and cruel. If you hear pages turning, you cut the bowline. Mara saw it and swallowed hard. That rule came late, she said, and the accusation in her voice wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed at the river, at the office, at the idea that rules could change mid-run. The clients heard the page turn sound too, and one of them started to cry in that quiet way adults cry when they hate themselves for losing control. Please, the client said, voice small. Please. Mara looked at me, and the moral dilemma landed hard. Cut the bowline, and lose control of the raft in backward current with terrified clients, or keep the line and let whatever held it tow us into whatever waited upstream. Policy says maintain control. Duty says keep people alive. Both choices left scars. I pictured the office review board, the permit inspector, the way an incident report could end Mara's season 2. I pictured the knee brace guy's face when he realized a scenic stop wasn't the worst mistake of his night. I cut. The knife under the cooler stayed out of reach, so I used the metal edge of my oar blade, sawing at the bow line where it ran over the frame. The rope fibers shredded slowly, stubborn, and the page turn sound sped up like impatience. The moment the bow line snapped, the raft should have shot downstream. It didn't. The raft hung in place for a heartbeat, perfectly still, water sliding under us without touching, like a film. Then the hair cords rose out of the river in a cluster, not splashing, not dripping, and they wrapped the raft frame itself, hugging metal like a lover. Mara's kayak jerked forward, yanked by something invisible, and she dug her paddle in hard to keep her craft from slamming into our stern. "Stay seated," I snapped at the clients, and my voice came out harsher than I meant. "Hands up, don't touch water." No second person, no soothing, pure survival order. The clients obeyed because fear can make adults as compliant as children, and the thought hit me like a slap. Compliance, rules, obedience. The river wanted it. The hair didn't pull us toward the bank anymore. It pulled us toward the center channel, toward the deeper, darker water where the surface looked too smooth. Mara paddled up alongside again, close enough to speak low. "Two options," she said. "Test for a winch or accept this isn't human." I hated that she could phrase horror like a checklist without making it feel like a checklist. Mara had the kind of competence that makes danger angry. I chose the human explanation again because choosing it felt like control. I ran a second test. The river had a guide rope attached to the frame for clients to hold. I unclipped the spare carabiner from my vest, clipped it to the end of the rope, and lowered it into the water straight down, letting it sink. The rope pulled taut before the weight hit bottom. Something below caught it gently, held it, then tugged twice, like a signal. Mara watched, eyes narrowed. "That's not current," she said. I pulled the rope up fast, hand over hand, keeping my wrists above the rim, and the carabiner surfaced wrapped in hair again. The braid wasn't random. The strands formed a clean loop that matched the shape of the carabiner gate, like the hair had learned metal geometry. The hair wanted hooks. The human explanation cracked. Mara offered the other hypothesis without flinching. "River takes what stops," she said. "Rules exist to keep bodies moving." The test proved both explanations incomplete because the braid looked practiced, almost engineered, like something that had been trained. A third possibility sat between them, and it felt worse than either. System. The outfitter had cameras at the launch ramp, motion sensors on the gate, and a safety director who loved paper trails. Every run got logged, every incident got reviewed, every guide got ranked. If the willow was a trap, it was a trap with paperwork. I tried to take a photo of the hair braid on the carabiner, proof for later, proof for the office, proof for myself. My phone screen showed the braid sharp, then blurred, then displayed my own face reflected back, pale, eyes too wide. The photo didn't save. The gallery app opened to an empty folder. Evidence loss, clean and deliberate. Mara caught my look and nodded once, grim. "Proof disappears," she said. "Keep proof physical." The river bend ahead narrowed, and the banks rose higher, rocky and dark. A cliff face leaned over the water in a way that made the channel feel like a throat. A guide's routine brain tried to name landmarks: a boulder, a snag, a little shelf where anglers sit. None of it matched. The river was repeating. The map was repeating. The smell stayed, sour and sweet, like a salon drain. Topic clutter, the things guides talk about when the day is normal, flashed through my mind anyway. Permit checks on weekends. The takeout gate that locked after hours. The river gauge alarm that went off when levels dropped. None of those systems mattered here, and that scared me more than hair. Mara pointed her headlamp at the right bank, and the beam hit a wooden signpost half submerged, old and gray, the kind of thing park crews install and then forget. The post was carved with words, but water and time had eaten parts of it. Somebody had carved over the old letters in fresh cuts, deep and angry. The unofficial warning looked like graffiti and confession at once. Don't stop, don't anchor, keep moving. Lower down, a line sat half missing where algae had grown over the wood. I could make out only fragments. If, offers tow, refuse. The last two words were clear, carved deeper than the rest, like the carver had pressed the knife in until knuckles hurt. Two shaky initials sat under the line, not a full name, just proof that a person had been scared enough to sign. Mara read it and let out a slow breath. Tow offer isn't rescue, she said. The binder line about dropping anchor came back to me, smeared, printed, official. The graffiti told the opposite: misprint, damage, a missing word. I realized my earlier obedience had been the trap rule, and the shame hit hard enough to make my hands shake. The hair cords tightened around the raft frame, and the raft surged again, faster, pulling us toward the narrow throat ahead. The clients started asking questions in a rush, their brains trying to climb out of terror. Answers, names, causes. Mara gave them the only thing that worked. Hold the rope, she said. Eyes down. No comfort. Just a job. A new idea crawled into my mind, the kind that feels smart until it gets people hurt. If the willow used rules to lure compliance, then breaking rules might break the pull. The primary law revealed itself in my gut, plain and procedural. The river punished stopping, rewarded motion, and used instructions as bait. I didn't say it like that. I couldn't. Saying it would have made it feel like magic. I made it feel like work. We keep the raft moving, I said, voice tight. No pauses. Mara nodded, then pointed at my dry box. The torn tab on the new sheet inside the binder sat like a missing tooth. The tab looked like it had been ripped from a labeled divider, and a smear of dark fibers clung to the adhesive edge, stuck there like lint. Hair fibers. Puzzle detail, small and wrong, planted in my mind like a splinter. The river throat opened into a pool that looked deeper than it should, water black and still, and the surface held the reflection of the cliff face without ripple. The hair cords pulled us into that pool, and the current under the raft changed texture, thickening, like the water had turned to syrup. Mara's paddle dipped in and came up coated in something that wasn't water. It clung, glossy, then vanished, leaving her blade dry. The river stole wetness. My mouth went dry with it. A low, distant hum started, not from insects or road, from beneath, like a generator buried under stone. The hum rose until it vibrated my teeth, and then it cut out all at once. Silence slammed down so hard the client stopped breathing. The lack of sound forced another choice. Speak and break the silence, or stay quiet and let the quiet turn everyone into prey. Mara leaned close. Talk low, she whispered. Keep brains human. I swallowed, tasted nothing, and spoke into the silence. Everybody keep hands off the water, I said. Look at the raft floor. The clients obeyed, eyes dropping, focusing on rubber and metal and cooler lids like those things could become safe. My radio clicked again, and the same flat voice returned. Tow is inbound. Remain calm. The voice used the exact calm tone the office used in safety videos. Mara's face went cold. Authority voice, she said. Trap. My brain grabbed for one more human lever, the emergency beacon. Every raft had one, a cheap plastic box sealed with a tamper sticker, because insurance demanded it. Breaking that sticker auto-triggered a review, a penalty, a season suspension for the guide who used it wrong. The office hated false alarms. The office punished guides who made paperwork. If I opened it, I might save people. I might also end Mara's season, end mine, and hand the outfitter a clean reason to blame us. If I didn't open it, the river would tow us into whatever waited below. Mara saw my hand hover over the beacon box and read the conflict on my face. Open it, she said. Deal with jobs later. That was Mara's second influence on my decisions, and it cut through every selfish motive I had left. I broke the tamper sticker. The box lid popped up, and inside was a small screen and a single button. I pressed it, hard enough to bruise my thumb, and the screen flashed a message in blocky letters, the kind of text designed for people in panic. Then the screen displayed only one thing, a single looping icon like a braided circle spinning forever. The beacon didn't send. It complied. The clients watched, hope rising and collapsing in the same breath. One of them let out a short, ugly laugh. That's it, the client said. That's the rescue, the river answered. A thin cable rose out of the black pool ahead, not hair, not rope, a clean synthetic line that gleamed faintly in Mara's headlamp. The line floated at the surface like it had been placed there by a hand, and it drifted toward our raft with a slow confidence. Tow line. The authority voice on the radio clicked again, eager. Attach tow. Follow instructions. The graffiti warning flashed in my mind. The binder warning. The missing word on the smeared line. Tow wasn't rescue. Tow was compliance with a leash. Mara shook her head once. No tow, she said. A client reached forward anyway, hands trembling, craving something to grab, and Mara slapped their hands away without apology. Hands back, she snapped. No touching. The client flinched, then listened. The tow line touched our raft frame and stuck, not with knots, with adhesion, like static electricity that chose metal. The line tightened, and the raft moved, upstream again, dragged toward a dark notch in the cliff face that sat just at water level, a submerged cave mouth. The title promise I'd been trying to dodge arrived right on time, and my gut turned to ice. Mara's headlamp beam hit the cave edge, and the rock wasn't rock. The surface was slick and dark, and it had strands embedded in it, hair fused into stone like rebar. Solidified hair, not wood, not plant, a construction material built from something human and intimate. The raft slid closer, and the cave mouth widened, not physically, but in perception, like my eyes started understanding depth they hadn't noticed before. Relief came in a sudden, stupid burst, because the tow line didn't feel like hair. It felt like a system. It felt like something that could be cut, something that could fail, something that had limits. That was the seeming victory, and it lasted 3 heartbeats. The new rule sheet in my dry box shifted on its own, paper scraping paper, and a fresh line appeared beneath the first, typed as cleanly as the others, the ink darker like it had been printed minutes ago. If you accept the tow, you become the tow. Mara read it and went pale. The clients didn't understand the sentence, and for that moment, I envied them. The tow line tightened again, and I felt it through the raft frame, through my boots, through my teeth, like a pulse traveling from the cave to my body. My arms started to move without command, hands reaching for the tow line clip point, fingers trying to obey. The system didn't want bodies. It wanted actions. It wanted hands doing what the rule told hands to do. I jerked my hands back and slammed them onto my thighs, nails digging denim. The stress reflex kicked in hard. Tap the carabiner twice. Breathe. Tap again. Mara saw my fingers twitch and reached across, grabbing my wrists, holding them down like she was stopping a sleepwalker from stepping off a roof. "Don't," she said, and her voice shook for the first time. The cave mouth pulled us closer, waterline rising against the raft tubes, and the hum under the river returned, deeper now, like machinery waking. I needed a move that broke obedience. My eyes snapped to the trip tag on the dry box lid, the one the office used for tips, the one that tied the run to my name without printing my name. The tag had been a joke earlier, a small judge. Now it looked like a handle. 7B. The code hadn't changed. It hadn't vanished like the photos. It stayed physical. A thought clicked into place, ugly and simple. If the system loved documentation, then the tag mattered to it. The tag was the hook. I grabbed the edge of the sticker with my fingernail and started peeling. Slow at first because the adhesive fought, then faster when the corner lifted. The sticker tore halfway, leaving half of 7B still stuck, half dangling in my hand. The raft lurched. The tow line slackened for a heartbeat. Mara's eyes widened. "Again," she said. I ripped the rest of the sticker free and crumpled it in my fist, keeping it off the water, keeping it from becoming an offering. The tow line snapped tight again, angrier, but the pull stuttered, like a machine losing calibration. The system wanted the label. The system wanted the run logged. Mara understood the same thing without words. She reached into her kayak deck bag and pulled out a little waterproof notebook, the one guides use to jot river levels and client counts, because the office likes numbers even when the river doesn't. She flipped it open, tore out a page, and slapped it onto my dry box lid with wet fingers, pressing hard. The paper stuck to the damp plastic. Mara scratched with her pencil in big, ugly letters. Not art, not poetry, just instruction. No willow stop. She held it up for the clients to see, like a placard, and their eyes latched onto it because humans love signs. The tow line trembled. The cave mouth waited. A stillness settled on the water, and Mara's headlamp beam caught the surface of the pool in a way that turned it into a screen. For half a second, the water reflected the raft from above, like a camera view, and in that reflection, something stood behind me on the raft that wasn't there in real space. A shape hunched at the stern, hair hanging in thick ropes, hands too long, elbows bending the wrong way, and the head turned without the shoulders turning. Tier 3, clear and unmistakable, captured in a medium the river controlled. My breath caught, and the clients made a strangled sound, not a scream because the silence didn't allow it. The reflection blinked out. The tow line yanked. No time to stare, no time to explain, only consequence. Mara shoved her notebook back into her bag and grabbed my radio, thumb hovering over the talk button like it burned. "Say nothing," I said, because the authority voice loved answers. Mara didn't press. She did something else instead, something more dangerous. She switched the radio to the public emergency channel, the one that didn't route through the outfitter, the one that went to anyone listening on the river. The radio didn't click. The radio didn't change. It stayed on the same dead air, and then it played a voice that sounded like Mara, but wasn't her. "Attach tow," the voice said. "Attach tow." Mara's face tightened with rage. "System," she spat. The major revelation hit me then, not as a speech, as a fact. The river didn't need monsters when it had compliance. The willow didn't need teeth when it had policies. The tow wasn't a rope, it was a role. A guide becomes what the system needs, because a guide is trained to make people obey. I realized how many seasons I'd spent teaching strangers to follow rules without understanding them. The shame turned into a clean kind of anger. A last rule sat on the graffiti post, the one line that had been half hidden under algae. Mara scraped it with her paddle blade, careful not to touch hair, and the missing letters emerged just enough to read. "If the toe finds frame, cut the frame tie." Frame tie, the metal strap that held the raft tubes to the rigid frame. Cutting it would ruin the boat. Cutting it would drop clients into water. Cutting it would cost the outfitter money. Cutting it would also break the tow's anchor point. Professional obligation versus adult safety. Again, sharper now. Save the boat or save the people. Mara looked at me. "Do it," she said. "Keep bodies in raft. No fight, no debate, just a call." I shoved the clients to the center, packed them tight, told them to wrap arms through the safety rope and lock elbows. Mara moved like she had done rescue drills 1,000 times, grabbing straps, tightening, keeping everyone connected to the raft, even if the frame went. The knife under the cooler still hid from me. I used the metal buckle on my life jacket strap instead, sawing at the frame tie where it ran close to the tube, grinding the edge against webbing until fibers frayed. My hands burned, my wrists shook. The tow line pulled harder, and the cave mouth rose up like a wave frozen in place. The frame tie snapped. The raft frame shifted, a sudden lurch, and the tow line lost tension for a heartbeat as the connection point moved. The hair cords around the frame loosened, confused by geometry change. The raft rolled slightly, tube dipping, and the clients screamed, then stopped when they realized their bodies stayed connected. Mara grabbed the loose frame, shoved it away from the tow line, and the tow line slid off the metal like a snake losing a branch. The raft surged downstream. Actual downstream, the right direction, the river finally agreeing with physics again, and the sudden sound of rushing water crashed back in like breath, returning after nearly drowning. Relief hid in 3 sentences, sharp and real. The cave mouth receded. The tow line sank out of sight. The willow bend grew smaller behind us. Then the real rule showed itself. The phone map in my pocket buzzed, and when I looked, the screen had updated at last. The background shifted. New bends, new landmarks, a normal river again. The dot showed us miles upriver from the launch. That couldn't be true. The clients didn't know what the map meant, but Mara did. Her eyes flicked to the banks, scanning, and her voice went low. "We didn't pass those cliffs," she said. "Not on this river." The season binder in my dry box rustled again, pages turning slow, patient, like a person flipping through a file. The willow didn't need to tow us into the cave to win. The willow just needed to move the record. My radio clicked, and the authority voice returned, softer now, almost kind. "Run complete. Please submit tip report." The words weren't rescue. The words were a transaction. Mara barked a laugh, raw and angry. "Keep it boring," she said. and her catchphrase sounded like defiance now. I did the only constructive thing left, the one action that might make the world slightly safer. I took Mara's waterproof notebook page that read, "No Willow Stop," and folded it tight, 3 times, until it became a stiff little square. I shoved it into the cracked seam under the graffiti post on the bank as we drifted past, wedging it deep where water couldn't wash it out fast. Then I grabbed the torn binder sheet with the toe rule, the one with the ripped tab, and I tore it in half and stuffed half into my pocket, keeping half in the binder because destroying evidence completely felt like obedience too. The clients asked what to do, voices trembling, eyes darting to the dark water behind us. "Stay with guides," Mara said. "No solo runs." A clean, practical warning, not a speech. Downstream lights appeared ahead, the takeout ramp glow, a small pool of human-made safety. The river felt normal again, noisy, messy, honest in its danger. My phone gallery still showed an empty folder. The proof stayed in my pocket, damp paper and torn tape, the only kind of evidence the system couldn't delete with a glitch. Mara paddled close and spoke low, so only I could hear. "I didn't notice the ripped tab then," she said, eyes on my pocket. "Not until later." Her hinge line landed like a hook, pointing at the detail I'd ignored, forcing a choice. I pulled the torn half sheet out and held it under my headlamp. On the back, written in the same ballpoint that had corrected the binder card, a message sat crooked, rushed, angry. 7B is bait. Tear it off. The puzzle detail paid off so cleanly it made my stomach drop. The office used the tag for tips, for tracking, for accountability. The Willow used it for the same reason. The system wasn't just the river. The system was the job. We hit the takeout ramp hard, tubes bumping wood, and the client scrambled out the moment feet could touch ground. None of them thanked me. None of them yelled. They just moved like people escaping a fire, and that hurt more than any insult. Mara climbed out last and stood beside me, dripping, shaking, eyes locked on the dark bend upriver. "Report?" she asked. Reporting meant paperwork, penalties, maybe lawsuits, maybe losing permits. Not reporting meant letting the Willow keep feeding on the next guide's compliance. I had already chosen once. "Report," I said, voice flat with exhaustion. "Public channel, not office." Mara nodded and pulled her phone out. The screen lit, then showed a spinning braided icon for half a second, then returned to normal. One more system warning, one more reminder of who owned the record. I keep asking myself one question when the river sounds creep into quiet rooms. How many guides tore off the tag and still got pulled? Before Mara hit send, she copied the warning into a plain message, short, clean, and she attached a photo of the torn note in my hand, because some proof has to ride outside the system to survive. The message went out, and for a moment, the night felt almost survivable. Then the season binder in my dry box shifted on its own, pages turning slow, and a new divider tab slid into view where the ripped one had been missing. The tab wasn't labeled with the Willow. It was labeled with a different river name I'd never guided, a place hours away, and beneath it a single line sat in fresh ink, like a reminder the system wasn't local. The note ended with, "If you've seen that symbol before, don't ignore it." Mara watched my face and understood without me speaking. "Same rules," she said. "Different water." I tapped my carabiner twice because my hands needed something to do, and I whispered the old mentor line one last time, not as advice, as a boundary. "Hands stay dry,